Hey guys, this is David with the Inside Guys.
And this is Wole.
I am very excited about this segment. We have a very special couple hailing from Sydney, Australia, Ian and Jemima Herman. Thank you guys for being on. I'm really looking forward to getting into this interview, hearing more about your background, how you got to Australia, and then some of your experiences there. So stay tuned, guys. This is going to be a very good interview. Guys, I'm really excited. We have the Hermans with us. Let's get the introduction of Ian and Jemima. Ian, tell us a little bit about yourself and Jemima.
Wonderful. I'm Ian Herman, excited to be on your show here today. And we have my lovely wife.
Hi, my name is Jemima Herman. I go by Jay. Super excited to be joining you guys today. Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Jay and Ian. So tell us, where do you live right now?
So right now we live in Sydney, Australia. We're in a town called Glebe, which is considered the inner west, but it's really in Sydney itself. From where I'm sitting, I could actually see Ian's office in Aidens school. So everything is really close by, which actually, funnily enough, if that's the word, we don't even have a car. We haven't had a car in the 5 years that we've lived here because we're so close to Sydney CBD.
Indeed.
Wow, nice. Very interesting. So we do want to get into your background, how you even got to Sydney, because you're not from Sydney, Australia, either one of you. But first, tell us a little bit about your career background, where you came from, and then we'll talk about kind of how it led up to you being there in Australia.
Awesome. I guess I could start.
Go for it.
I'm a bit more of the technologist of the family and started and had a great career actually working with both of you folks at Microsoft. I started as a solution architect and worked my way up through specialist sales and all the way into sales strategy and enablement as Microsoft transitioned to the cloud. Then after an amazing time there, went to Amazon Web Services and been doing a lot of really fun stuff over here at Amazon. So that's a little bit about my career background.
Good. And Jay?
And for me, it's a little different. I actually went to school to be a lawyer. And while in school, I stumbled on this exciting opportunity at Microsoft. I joined in 97, and that's where I met Ian. I came on board first as an executive admin, moved into marketing, did some sales, and then realized my sweet spot was working with partners and helping partners grow their business. So I've been working with or around Microsoft for the last 20 plus years.
Very
So
nice.
I didn't know that part of the story. I didn't know that you guys met at Microsoft. So that's a really interesting part of the story.
Yeah, my first day on the job.
First day on the job. Okay.
First day on the job. That sounds like
That's
a whole
when we
other.
met. Yes, that's when we
It
met.
sounds like a whole other episode, but yes.
Yes. Yeah, I would like to get that another video, but yeah. Yeah. In full transparency, Wole and I have known Jay and Ian for, I guess it's 20 years, 18
At
years?
least since
Yeah.
the early days of my career. And you guys, you didn't talk about where you started where you were when you started and where you met. Can you
Where'd
talk
you
about
live?
that?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Good point. We were in the New York City office. We started in 825 8th Avenue before they relocated to Times Square area. So that was where we started.
Yeah.
And I think Ian got hired out of the Connecticut office.
I was in Connecticut
And then moved to New York.
came down to New York. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
where-
I'm sure you made the transfer after you met Jay, right?
exactly. Well, and then we
Immediately.
got to meet my lovely wife, got to meet you folks. So
Yeah.
it's been lots of great colleagues and friends from that period.
Yeah, it was good. It was great working with both of you. Remember a lot of different meetings with you guys. So it was great to have you back. Let me ask you, so looking at where you were in New York working at Microsoft, did you ever envision working in Sydney, Australia at that time?
Absolutely not. I think when we met, my goals were set on getting to Atlanta, Georgia. I had my sights set on Atlanta, and
I
I
haven't made it there yet.
I still haven't made it there. I visited, but I've never moved there. But it's not to say we won't. You know, at this point, we're a nomad family, so we go, where we find that we'll have the most excitement. But no, never thought we'd be living in Sydney, Australia. Never thought we'd be living in Redmond, Washington, which was another footnote along our story and how we got here. But no, we were living in New York, had our son in New York, who's now 15, Aiden, and we moved to Redmond, Washington, well, Bellevue, Washington in 2007?
I think so,
Yeah, 2007, 2008.
Got you. Very good. Well, Lloyd, I know you had some questions about.
Yeah. Yeah, so let me pick it up from there. So you moved from New York. You didn't make it to Atlanta as far as living in Atlanta, but you moved to Redmond, Washington, outside of Seattle. Now, you talked about the fact that you're in Sydney now. How long have you been in Sydney, Australia?
So we've been here 5 years. We moved here in 2018. And it's been an amazing experience end to end. Like I don't think we're looking forward to ever leaving because it's such a fun country to live in. So it's been 5 years, but it went by really fast. COVID also sped things up a bit, So I feel like we lost 2-3 years there, but it's been a great way to really immerse yourself in your city when you can't leave your city.
That's true. Yeah.
Absolutely. So now the obvious question now that I want to get into is, how did you get from outside of Seattle to Sydney? I want to hear the whole story of how you ended up in Sydney.
I think the first move, if you look at our move from New York over to, like, once you do that, that's a couple thousand miles, and family coming to visit and family kind of hanging out and enjoying the Pacific Northwest. And that kind of started our journey. And that was sort of for work opportunities for Jay, and I kind of followed along and moved into the cloud as Microsoft was going there. So we kind of did that one move. And then once you do that move, then I guess we started to entertain some other ideas. And it's kind of a funny story on how we kind of ended up here. Yeah.
So it's actually a really funny story because Ian had been approached by his manager at the time about his manager relocating back home to Australia. I think he's originally from Australia.
He is, yeah.
And so he had, I think, in passing mentioned that he wanted Ian to come with him to lead their cloud enablement business. Ian did not mention it to me. This is where our stories fork a little bit. Or if he did, he mentioned it as a joke. Very passing. We've quickly established in our relationship what makes it work is I am kind of the doer. I'm the executioner. I get it done.
Capricious. Let's go do that.
Let's go do it. Let's go do it.
I'm pros, cons, weigh some things out, analytical,
It's a good balance. It's a good balance.
Exactly. That actually works with our portfolio. Actually works well that way too.
It does.
A little bit more risk, a little bit more conservative.
Yes. So he really wanted to weigh the pros and cons before having a very serious conversation, but lightly in passing, it might have been mentioned, but nothing. Yeah, so 2017, Ian had a work trip in Europe, and as is really common in corporate families that travel, where you can bring the whole family with you, you take advantage of that. So we went with him to London. I think it was London and Paris. So it was about a 2-week trip.
Nice.
And in Seattle, while at the Amex Lounge waiting for our flight for this work trip, in comes said manager. And he mentioned very casually, actually, he wasn't very casual about it. He was very direct. And he said, direct to me, are you the reason Ian hasn't given me a response yet? And I said, a response to what? And he said, to my invitation to join me in standing up this cloud enablement business in Sydney, Australia. And I mean, my eyebrows shot to the top of my head. Like, oh, this is a real opportunity to move to Sydney. And you can tell, I can almost feel the energy from Ian next to me, kind of like, stop talking. Eboard. But needless to say, that really sped the process up a lot. I think
we got through our pros and cons. We got through her. We're gonna go do it. We had
very quickly.
He was in region, so it should be Singapore
or
Sydney, and we're like, Sydney sounds good.
Sydney sounds good. We had never been to Sydney. We had been to Singapore. We liked Singapore, but we couldn't see living there. And Sydney, Australia, was a place that was on our wish list, but we had never visited. And we after the pros and cons and the logical walkthrough step by step while I was already packing my suitcase and packing up the house.
Wow.
We made the decision to move. And then after we had signed, we came out for a site visit, which was very risky because we had already signed a dotted line.
Wow.
For the site visit, and it was amazing. It was amazing.
Can I ask you a quick question? How
Yep.
soon after the conversation in the Amex lounge did you pack and end up in Sydney? How quickly did this happen?
I would say it was less than a year. Let's
It
see.
was like
It
6 or
happened in
7 months. I think some of the delay was visa
Yes.
processing, and
Okay.
visas is something to think about. That's one of the coaching I'd give folks as they're thinking to go somewhere, is that
Right.
getting visas and getting to move or getting residency, that takes a lot longer than you'd expect. But
Yep.
it was still around 7 or 8 months. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
pretty
because
fast.
we were in the, I think that trip was it was during Aiden's school break, so it would have been
April.
summer 2018.
Almost
After
a year, yeah.
after
Yeah.
our site visit in
Yeah.
May, and we were officially here in August 2018.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah.
So sounds like you made the decision very quickly. You did your homework. You weighed the pros and cons, but you made a very decisive decision. I'm going to think that Jay was probably behind that decisive decision.
I had my spreadsheets.
He
though.
had his plan.
I did.
He had
I
his
had my
plan.
financials,
Yeah.
taxes,
Yeah.
you know,
He-
and that was some of the stuff. And like,
Yeah, he has the spreadsheets. I have the suitcases
Yeah.
at the door. Is the spreadsheet good? Is it good?
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's
Yeah.
go.
That was quite the process. And I think when you move from one place to another, there's sort of the disconnecting and a little bit of fear that kind of comes through. You're like, whoa, what are we doing? That's true
Absolutely.
when you move from like whether New York, New Jersey to Seattle, or Seattle to the next area, particularly when you have a family too. But the
Yeah.
weird part is, I guess, when you are kind of a team, it kind of just sort of like goes, you kind of play off each other's strengths, you get it all done. And then once you get there, it's pretty amazing. It's kind of freeing as well to get
It
rid of
is.
all your stuff,
Yes.
which is like, you know, dining room tables, 3 or 4
House,
bedrooms, and
cars.
all this stuff. Like my
Yes.
car, you know, and you're like, okay, you know, then you get here and you're like, wow, okay,
Yeah.
we're in Sydney. We're living in Sydney.
It
So-
was a very different experience moving here than moving from New York, New Jersey to Seattle.
True.
I remember when our car was delivered. I
They shipped
remember
their car.
they
Yeah.
shipped our cars, you know, furniture, all of that came in huge boxes. Weeks later, they took it all and put it in storage. This time around, we really just wanted to start fresh. And so
Minimalist,
we
yeah.
sold the house, sold all the furniture. We literally came with maybe one bed and
Yeah.
a dresser, and that's it. And then we really just wanted to start fresh.
And we're slowly accumulating more stuff.
More
as we go
stuff,
here.
yes.
That's how it is.
Yeah.
So I have one more question before I turn it over to Dave. So you made your site visit. That was the first time you made a decision. Then you made your site visit. You visited essentially sight unseen. What were previous to arriving in Australia? What were your impressions, and then what was the reality that you discovered? Like, did you have things that happened that were unexpected or experiences? Like, what was your overall impression once you got there?
Yeah, I guess I'd say it was pretty much similar to what we'd expected. I guess coming to be a diverse, you know, African American family, and then moving there, we did notice that there were not as many any folks from the African diaspora. We have to kind of even go bigger in Sydney. So that was one thing that was different. And then also being sort of an underrepresented minority, as you kind of think of it in the States, it's a little bit different here, whereas you're more of an expat. You're not really that much of an underrepresented, I guess you would say, minority. You're underrepresented in terms of people, but you know, we are blessed doing quite well and kind of, you know, things like that. And you kind of we learned a lot more around sort of indigenous cultures. We had some interesting interactions with a realtor that made some blanket comments about Chinese people. So there's definitely some things that we learned. We're like, okay, there's still bias. There's still things going on here in terms of that. But we kind of learned a bit more around sort of what the culture and sort of what does it mean to be African American in Sydney. So yeah, that was one difference.
Yep.
So guys, let me ask you, what are some of the challenges that you face raising a son in Sydney compared to being in the US?
Yeah, so it's definitely been a transition. I wouldn't so much as call it a challenge as it's been an adjustment. In the US, we were driving Aiden everywhere, you know, Little League, T-ball, music, piano, constantly in the car, constantly personal chauffeur. Here, we moved here when he was 10 years old, and I remember picking him up from school and getting on the bus with him and being the only parent on the bus with all of his
Okay.
friends. He was in year 5 at the time, and he said, "Mom, this is embarrassing. Look around. No other mommy or daddy are here. You have to go sit in the back. You have to go." And I remember just thinking, "You're 10. You don't even have a cell phone. I'm not letting you sit on a city bus by yourself."
In a
But
new
that's
country. Yeah.
out here. The kids are really a lot more free to come and go, and they have that independence. And there's a lot of factors that feed into that. But
Agreed.
I mean, just simple things like camp. These kids go on 2 mandatory, compulsory camps every year that require them to really just be off the net. And I mean, recently Aiden went on a sea kayaking camp where he was out kayaking for 2 weeks
Wow.
off the
Wow.
water with 10 other classmates, 1 chaperone, and they had to swim or kayak for about 6 hours a day to set up camp at the next location.
Yeah.
These are some huge
Very
adventures,
rugged.
very
Yeah.
rugged. It's like tough these kids up. And I don't hear a peep from him. I have nowhere to reach him, nowhere to call him. And they come back and he's like, wow, what an experience. So that was an adjustment, just being
Much
able
more
to just,
independent.
yeah,
It
you
is,
want-
it's sort of like they let kids kind of go, and it is very safe here. So we did end up getting him a cell phone, which was good and bad.
yes.
But now we know where he is with his little kind of where's his phone, and we can
Yeah.
kind of see where he is, and he kind of checks in and we
Yeah.
kind of see when he's going to make it home and things
Yeah.
like that.
I'm curious though, as a parent, what was that adjustment like for you? Like, so now you are sort of fitting into the culture of how parenting happens there, but you lived in New York and in Seattle. So like,
Yeah.
what was that personal adjustment for you to make him feel comfortable in his new environment, but you had to be uncomfortable?
He was
Yeah.
comfortable.
He was comfortable. He wanted us gone. I think it was really an adjustment
It
for
was for
us,
us,
and
yeah.
and really me, because Ian works across the street from the school.
I forgot to say
So,
that. Where I chose when we first came on that site visit,
the hotel.
Jay picked that school, and we picked the school. My job was across the street, so we're like, regardless, this is going to be perfect.
That's nice.
Because
Yeah.
the school's there, I'm here. We're going to come in together wherever we end up living if we move.
Right together.
So that was perfect. But
Yep.
so we've always been super close.
Yes, yes. And the adjustment really was on us and me specifically, because Ian is close enough where if he needs to, especially here because of the independence, by year 9, the kids get a free lunch period, meaning they can leave. It's a city school, so they can step out of the school, they can have lunch within a certain radius around the city. And again, year 9 is only 14, 13 years old. These kids could leave the school and have lunch anywhere in the city,
Wow.
and that's an adjustment, right? Can you imagine that in
That's
New York?
very different than the
Jump
U.S.
on a train and go to Manhattan and get a
Very
hoagie and come
different,
back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the one adjustment that I still have not let go of is if he's doing a trip with his classmates in Australia, I'm okay letting him go. If it's out of the country, and again, these school trips are pretty big. He's had a chance to go to Europe twice now,
Yeah.
2 big Europe school trips. And
Wow.
out of the first time he went, it was 15 kids. I was one of 4 parents who signed up as a chaperone and wanted to be there the whole time.
She's always going there with them.
Especially if it's like Italy. I mean, come on, why wouldn't I go to Italy? And then recently he went on a Europe trip. That was actually 3 weeks in April. And that was 85 kids. And of the 85 kids, there were maybe 7 or 6 parents there. And sure enough, I'm like, nope, I'm there. So that's where we've made a balance where we're okay letting him just sprout his wings and be independent. But sometimes we definitely are like, nope, we got to stay close to this.
Yeah, I think I might be the same way. That's a big adjustment over time, especially out of the country and stuff. So
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It
But
is.
different views on independence and sort of the kids sort of being able to take care of themselves. And
yeah. So you've probably seen a maturity in him much quicker than probably he may have had in the U.S. Would you say?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, when he does these trips, when he does these international trips, we're not there. The school doesn't want us to book our hotels and their hotels. They
Okay.
book days for them to do their laundry. He has to do that on his own. They check in. He manages his passport. And then when we travel as a family, we get to see that maturity. For example, when we were going on our recent vacation, we had to fill out these immigration forms coming back. And he got excited. He said, "Oh, I did that, Mom. I did that for myself when I was coming back from Italy." And
You're like,
he,
"Oh my
I'm like, "Take it." I'm usually the form person on the
Exactly.
flights because
I don't even do that.
I'm the execution. I do it. Aiden was on the flight, like, "You have a pen?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've got a pen here." And so he filled out his form himself
That's
and
cool.
walked through security and, checked in himself. It's pretty fascinating. It's great to watch that growth.
Yeah,
That's
great to see.
amazing. That's amazing. That puts them in a position to mature in a good way. That's awesome.
Absolutely.